Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome you to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, how to successfully apply for PPP funding. We are about to go live on Zoom. I want to welcome all those that are here. We're going to get started in a few moments as people begin to attend. And I want to welcome you and thank you for joining us. In a few moments, we will be live on Zoom. This is part of our series of technical assistance webinars that we do as a chamber to help business owners understand and navigate various opportunities that are available. So we will get started in just a few moments. Thank you very much for joining us. If you are on Facebook, please share the link. It will be available in just a few moments as we get started. So join the conversation, share it with your friends, and we are going live on Facebook. All right, we are live on Facebook. I want to welcome everyone to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, how to successfully apply for PPP funding. This has been a journey that we've been doing ever since last year when the pandemic hit. We need to make sure that our business owners have the funding they need to sustain and keep their doors open and keep people employed and hired. The Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce has been in the forefront of making sure that our small business owners know the latest information when it comes to funding and resources that the government has for our businesses to make sure that they can keep their doors open during this trying time. Last year, many of our members were one of the first to get PPP funding because of partners like City National Bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, being able to come to us, let us know, and really educate us on that process. And many of our member businesses that have stepped up to provide bookkeeping, accounting, and legal service and make sure that our business owners have all the tools they need to take advantage of these funding. Now that we're in 2021, there's another round of PPP funds coming out. We partnered with a coalition of chambers to put on a series of webinars on PPP. This is one of the latest that we have with our partners with City National Bank. And I want to welcome everyone. And to participate, please, first of all, share this. This is a powerful time. This can get a lot of funding for many of our business owners. So share this on Facebook. You can click the link to join the conversation so that you can have and ask these questions directly to the banks and also bookkeeping that will make sure that you are fully prepared to access this funding. So with that, our president, Eric Knowles, couldn't make it today. He had an event he needed to take care of pretty quickly. So I wanted to make sure and fill in his place. My name is Matthew Pygott. I'm a minority and small business enterprise manager for the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. And it is my honor to welcome Ms. Barbara Burke, who is the managing senior vice president for City National Bank, as we get involved and get engaged with that. Barbara, would you like to join in on us?
Yes, good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Matthew. Good to see you. And good morning, everyone at the Chamber. Thank you so much for having us. I'm going to be presenting along with my colleagues, make some quick introductions. Jimmy Frett is our retail risk executive. He's going to be talking a little bit about the PPP forgiveness part of the program, and Bernie Adriver, he's going to be talking about actually latest breaking news. We don't even have the part of the presentation set up for that yet, but he's going to talk a little bit about the changes that have just been rolled out with the recent SBA announcements just this week. So we will hopefully get everyone very current on the latest, greatest on what's available out there. So, and I'm going to talk about the program in general, just the changes from round 1 to round 2. But I think we're going to turn it over to Bernie to get things started, because I think everyone's very anxious to hear about what is going on today in the world of PPP. So Bernie, off to you.
Thank you, Barbara. Again, good morning. Here from City National Bank, your banking partner. It's a pleasure and honor to present to the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce members I know Eric well, and Eric is a really big advocate of a small business. So this is truly about a small business. Before I go into the details of the latest Biden-Harris small business PPP changes, I want to kind of highlight some of the numbers, the latest numbers from the SBA. Just to give you an idea, so far through the payroll protection program, we have approved. I mean, the government through the banks have approved close to about $125 billion in PPP funding. Out of those $125 billion, that basically is about 1.6 million applications. The average loan size of those applications compared to the first round of PPP is basically much lower, is about 75,000. But I think the more important news that I want to share with all the membership is that when you look at the second draw or the second round of PPP on business less than 10 employees, which is truly the small business, the blood line of small business in America, the dollars have been almost $29 billion for average loan size of $33,000. So that tells you that basically this new round of PPP is really working towards the small business. So that is a segue to what I want to really highlight right now before Barbara talks about the general program. But in few words, basically, the Biden-Harris administration this past Monday basically created a nuance in the payroll protection program. And this is something really good because basically it's going to help out the sole proprietors, independent contractors, which are going to be able to receive thousands of dollars under the new PPP for application. So that will be something really, really good. And I can tell you that with the changes that they're making, they're going to help out how to reach the rest of the population in the small business side. So this started basically yesterday, Wednesday, the 24th of February. Is going to be good for 14 days. So probably through the rest of remains in February and the first 15 days of March. And this basically caters to businesses that have less than 20 employees. This is going to allow basically sole proprietors, independent contractors, and self-employed individuals to receive more financial support because the government, the SBA, is going to revise the formula for these categories, how they go. They usually go about it. They normally go by gross profits, gross revenues. In this particular case, they're going to be able to enhance that, and they're going to allow for those small business owners, for those Uber drivers, for those hairdressers, for those self-contractors to be able to apply and get a little bit more money. In addition to that, they had a lot of what they call, they're going to be eliminating some restrictions on the PPP access for these small business owners. And basically what they're eliminating is non-fraud felony convictions. You have one of those, they're going to be eliminating that condition. They're going to be eliminating also, if you had a student debt that was delinquent or wasn't paid, they're going to be taking that out. Or any other federal loan payments that basically were due, that they're going to be eliminating that condition. So that is going to enhance the pool and the opportunity of applicants that are going to be able to apply for these PPP loans. And again, the more important thing is that they're going to allow, the allowance is about $2 billion for these 14 days, exclusively that these small business owners are going to be able to apply. In addition, they are also adding up another clause, they ensuring access for a lot of the non-citizen small business owners that are paying lawful taxes in the United States. So if you are a U.S. resident, you're paying taxes, even though you are a foreign owner, you're going to be able to apply as long as you have a taxpayer identification number or ITIN. They usually start with a number 9. You're going to be able to apply for this type of loans that which before you couldn't do. But I think probably with these changes, the new administration is going to enhance the opportunity for a lot of you small business owners to be able to apply and get it going. Not only you're gonna have most of the banks and other financial institutions helping you out for these 14 days, it's gonna be exclusive for you to be able to apply and get those needed funds. So those are the highlights. Again, it started yesterday. It's gonna go through the middle of March. And those are really, really good news from the new administration. So without that, and we're gonna take questions later on, I wanna pass the opportunity for Barbara Burke, our Director of Risk for City National Bank, to talk about the general parameters of the PPP. Barbara?
Great. Thanks so much, Bernie. Good morning again, everyone. Really, again, appreciate the opportunity to be here. Appreciate the partnership we have with the Chamber, and again, the opportunity to really share the latest. And you know, again, just to reiterate a little bit with what Bernie's sharing. I mean, it's significant improvements, or it significantly increases the availability of funding to very small businesses with these changes that were just rolled out this past week. So hopefully everyone can take advantage of that opportunity in their exclusivity window of the next 2 weeks, where no one else's PPPs are going through except for those with the employees under 20 employees in their business. So, but to take a step back, you know, I don't know if every you may or may not be aware, City National Bank really participated in a big way in round one last year. So in terms of processing PPP loans, we just thought it was very important to help support our clients and to help support the community. You know, for those that have been impacted by the economic impacts of COVID-19, and that's most everyone out there, right? So just to what degree. So we are participating again now in what we're calling round two, which is the funding that's available now under the stimulus package that was approved. You know, the total allocation is $284 billion nationwide. You know, and again, this is to support small to mid-sized businesses and covering costs related to payroll. That's the primary driver behind this, and I think most people are aware of that. So the program overall is available through the end of March of this year, March 31st, 2021, or the sooner of the funds being depleted, running out essentially. So you know, there is a great deal of funding left available, and again, this window that Bernie just talked about provides an even better opportunity for those very small businesses to have access to the funds that are still remaining in the pool. Let me touch on real quick on how do you actually determine the loan amount that you're eligible for. You know, kind of get back to some basic things just to cover at a very high level. So so essentially the way this is determined is you're taking your average total monthly payment payroll costs for the last year for a 1-year period before the date of the loan, multiplied by 2.5 times. So that's the calculation, but there is a restriction. There's a cap, essentially, of it's $10 million if you're taking the loan, a PPP loan, for the very first time. So we call it first draw and second draw, and basically all that means is first draw is you're taking a PPP loan for the very first time, and second draw means you took one last year and you're taking one this year. So so again, the way to determine your maximum loan amount is it's $10 million, or 2.5 times your payroll, or $10 million if it's the first draw loan, or $2 million if it's a second draw loan. So the availability this go around is generally a bit on the smaller side. Let's go on to the next page, please. And just talk a little bit more specifically. So the draw one, again, this is if you've not had a PPP loan before, to be eligible, you need to have a maximum of 500 employees. There are some special considerations for the NEX code. NEX is an industry code of 72, which is essentially referring to the hospitality industry. So we're talking about restaurants, bars, theaters, you know, hotels, things that are related to hospitality, in terms of the maximum employees, because then there's special consideration given to the number of locations that they have. And then it's up to 2.5 times the average monthly payroll. This is, again, if you're getting funds for the first time. If you are a returning PPP borrower, you're getting funds for the second time, a draw two. This time the guideline, again, the number of your maximum number of employees has shrunk from 500 to 300. Again, with those same special considerations for the hospitality industry businesses. And specifically for hospitality, the nice thing has been that they've said, okay, this time around, this industry has been hit particularly hard. We're gonna let you do your calculation for your loan amount at a 3.5 times your average payroll. So for everyone else, it's still 2.5 times, but the good news there is that for hospitality, it has now been increased to 3.5 times. So again, just really a focus on those businesses that have been particularly hard hit during this pandemic. The other significant change for this, if you're a returning round two, draw two borrower, is that you have to this time show proof of your impact, and that is by this revenue reduction factor. So the SBA is saying that you need to show a revenue reduction of 25% in at least one quarter in 2020 versus 2019. So in other words, if you had a reduction of revenue in Q3 of 2020 over Q3 of 2019 by 25%, that makes you eligible. You could also choose to select the entire year as your comparison. So it has to be at least one quarter year over year, or you could choose to use the entire year 2020 versus the entire year for 2019. But either way you choose, and that's completely up to you what works best for your business, but you need to show that there's a 25% decline in revenue. So revenue is gross receipts. That's another terminology that you'll hear for that. So, and then you will have used or will use the other criteria if you're coming back for a second funding, is that you will have used the full amount of the first PPP loan for all your authorized purposes on or before the disbursement of the second PPP. That's the other criteria for the second round, right? So primary loan purpose, this hasn't really changed. The primary purposes of getting the PPP loan is retain your employees, retain the workers. So that's the main driving force behind this, is that we want to keep people employed despite the situation that we're going in economically, or here, despite what's going on in your business. So maintaining the payroll, so payroll is the primary eligible item to spend the funds on. The next one would be mortgage interest and rent and utility payments. So those are all eligible expenses. And why that's important is that this program, it is initially a loan program, but it's designed that if you use the funds appropriately, or as per the guidelines, I should say, then this loan will be forgiven. So it turns into something much better than a loan, which has to be repaid, right? So if the funds are used according to the program guidelines, it will be forgiven. So that's important to note. And that's why knowing the eligible uses of the program are important. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so the specific conditions of the PPP program. So this is unlike many other SBA loan programs. The SBA loan programs typically require a personal guarantee. That's not the case here. The programs also typically have a test on any other loans that you have credit elsewhere. So if you have mortgage debt or equipment financing or a line of credit, all of that is irrelevant to your qualifying for this payroll loan. Those are typically things that are discussed if you have another SBA loan. There's no collateral requirement. There's no prepayment penalty. The maximum maturity date on the PPP program is 5 years for any loan amount that's not forgiven. So if for some reason the loan isn't forgiven, if the funds were utilized where for unqualified expenses, it just stays as a regular loan, and it goes out for 5 years. And the presumption, though, is that you're adversely impacted by the coronavirus. So that is an attestation that you make as a borrower that you have been adversely impacted. If you're in round one, it's that simple attestation. If you're in round two, you actually have to show that your revenue declined. So that's the impact by a coronavirus. Let me take a minute to talk to you about payroll costs. So this is the driver for making your calculations for the amount of the loan that you're qualified for. So this is very important. So payroll costs are the sum of the gross amount of the following items. So you'll note it's not just wages, right? So salary, wages, commissions, or similar comp are obviously the biggest item involved. Cash tips can be included in this. You can also include vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave. And these are all the portion of payroll that are covered by the employer on behalf of the employee. Same thing for allowance for dismissal or separation, healthcare benefits, and retirement benefits. Again, these are items that you as the employer are covering on behalf of your employees. That portion of it is eligible for your total payroll calculation. Also, state and local taxes assessed on the compensation of the employees and federal payroll taxes. So all of those items is what you would add together when you apply for the loan to come up with your average monthly payroll. So it's not just wages. So I think that might be, we often see healthcare benefits and retirement benefits not even being included in, and so the borrower is not going for the maximum amount that they might be eligible for. So just some good things to note. What it doesn't include is compensation of any individual employee in excess of an annual salary of $100,000. Now, that doesn't mean that employee's wages are completely excluded. It simply means if, let's say, their compensation was $110,000 or $120,000, it's the amount over $100,000 that's deducted from the payroll. So you don't have to exclude the employee in their entirety. It's just the amount over the $100,000 threshold. Any compensation of an employee whose principal place of residence is outside the U.S. Again, this is a cost that you cannot include in your payroll. So if you happen to have employees overseas, the SBA is a U.S. government-backed program, so they want to help the employees that are within the United States. So those employees, unfortunately, would also be excluded from your calculations. Any qualified sick leave or family medical leave. So those are the items that you cannot include, but obviously there's a long list of things that you can include, and it's important to make sure that you understand them because, again, we frequently see borrowers not necessarily maximizing their loan amount by including some of these other items in their calculations. All right, I am going to pass off from here. Again, as Bernie said earlier, we're going to be happy to take questions at the end of the program. So if there's anything that I covered just now in terms of the qualifications or the calculations for the program itself, be happy to answer those at the end. So please hold on to those questions. But I'm going to turn it over now to my colleague, Jimmy Frett, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the loan forgiveness portion of the program. All right, Jimmy?
Thank you, Barbara. First and foremost, it's been a pleasure for City National Bank to be involved in the PPP program, both on the origination side and on the forgiveness side, and again in the second draw program. I think the program has helped a lot of small businesses, and we're very excited and very grateful that new programs continue to be created to help small business weather the storm. When we talk about loan forgiveness, it's important to understand that part one is getting the funds, right? But part two is making sure that you use the money as the funds were designed to be used for eligible costs. So if you use the money as it was intended, then the paycheck protection loans will be forgiven on a tax-free basis. The amount is the sum of the following payments made by the borrower during the 24-week period beginning on the date of funding. So it's important that the funds are used for payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, certain utility payments, but it's also very important that you don't delay the loan forgiveness process. Before this call, I looked at our internal numbers to see how many of our borrowers had already applied for forgiveness. And according to my internal numbers, only 40% of first-time borrowers have applied for forgiveness. So let's not delay. Let's get with our banker, with our bank. Let's consult with our tax advisors and make sure that we apply today and not tomorrow. That it's very, very important that you don't delay using this, right? Doing this. So the goal is for 60% of the funds to be used for payroll. So the payroll protection program is a focus on keeping jobs and payroll. So thank you for moving that slide. So what is the covered period? So you hear the covered period all the time. What it really is the 24-week period after the PPP loan disbursement, where you're using the funds on the eligible, on the eligible cost. There are options for borrowers to calculate payroll costs using an alternate payroll covered period under certain circumstances. Okay, borrowers with a bi-weekly payroll schedule may elect to calculate eligible payroll costs using the 24-week period that begins on the first pay period following the PPP loan disbursement. It's important to understand that alternate payroll cover period is synonymous with the covered period. So it's pretty easy to understand. You apply for your loan, you use it the way it's supposed to be used, at least 60% on payroll, and you use it, you spend it during the cover period. Next slide, please. Now, I got to tell you, it's the payroll, the forgiveness process has been evolving. It's been getting better. There's some tweaking that has been done, and so when you consider how quickly this had to be rolled out, it's been a success. A lot of hard work from bankers, from borrowers, but also the government, making sure that it gets tweaked so that we optimize forgiveness. Okay, timing is of the essence. If the borrower does not apply for loan forgiveness within 10 months after the last day of the covered period, the PPP loan is no longer deferred, and the borrower must begin paying principal and interest. Okay, so that's important to understand that you don't have forever. You need to start forgiveness sooner than later. If the 10 months elapse, then the lender must notify the borrower of the date that the first payment is due. So your bank will be contacting you if you don't apply for forgiveness. It's when you look at the forgiveness forms. I'm not going to get into tax accounting. You can get onto the next slide. I'm not going to get too detailed. We've got a CPA, a great CPA on our panel that we can direct any technical issues around accounting. But you've got 3 different forms. You've got the 3508S, the easy form, and the 3508. So and loans over $2 million, those are subject to a formal review by the SBA. So what you really need to understand in dealing with the forgiveness process is keep good notes. Make sure that you're keeping good books. Any questions, don't guess. Consult your tax advisor. I think the process was designed pretty smoothly. A lot of hard work, but good luck. And any questions are going to be addressed in the next section. So I believe that's it from City National Bank. Barbara, did you want to open it up for questions, or are we going to move on to the next speaker?
Thanks, Jimmy. I think we're going to move on now. Matthew, I think we're going to hand it back off to you.
Thank you very much, Barbara, Jimmy, Bernardo, and the team for really sharing that information. I love the slide, and thank you, City National Bank, for being such an amazing partner. I love the slide where you talked about how this loan funding doesn't have any personal guarantees. There's no credit elsewhere, no collateral requirement, no prepayment penalty, and you can take 5 years to pay off any loans that's not forgiven. So that is really, and the presumption that you've been adversely impacted by coronavirus. That is right on. That is what many of our business owners need. And Jimmy, you spoke about not delaying forgiveness, which is something that was a recent change in what we've talked about. So I really appreciate you and City National Bank for bringing the latest information to us, because at the beginning, when the funds were first released, we told a lot of our business owners to wait and off on forgiveness until these new rules with forgiveness were put in place. And now that all those rules have been put in place, we are steadfastly advising, just like City National, to apply for forgiveness as soon as possible so this can get out of your mind and you can take advantage of all the resources. So much respect, City National Bank, for doing that. Now I want to turn it over to our one of our members of the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, Teresa Oliver, who owns Millennial Bookkeeping and Accounting, to talk about the other half of this. So City National Bank brought in and discussed the aspect and focused on, as a banker, all the things you need in the terms. But many times, as small businesses, our back end is much of the challenge. Getting the paperwork together, making sure we have our taxes and forms put together. And now we have Teresa Oliver that will be coming on and joining us to share that aspect of it. So Teresa, would love to have you join in so that you can share your part of this presentation.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here and discuss with you bookkeeping in general, because it matters. Because if it's done in general, then it's ready for the PPP. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started.
And as Teresa pulls up her slides, I do want to advise we will be taking questions and answers. So for those that are on Facebook, you can click the link to join us on Zoom, or put your questions in. We have some questions already in Zoom, and we're going to go through those questions live online. So please ask as many questions right now while we have the experts on. Put them in the Q&A box, and we look forward to hearing from you. So thank you very much, everyone. And Teresa, you have the floor.
Thank you. Okay, so again, my name is Teresa Oliver. I am the owner of Millennial Bookkeeping and Advisory Services. We are a fully remote firm that provides everything from your basic bookkeeping services to CFO and advisory services. And today I really just want to talk about bookkeeping, why your business needs it and how it affects your ability to successfully apply for the PPP. We're going to go over the basic elements of bookkeeping and how they show up on your financial statements and your tax returns. Okay, what is bookkeeping? Bookkeeping is the accurate and timely recording of all financial and financial related transactions for business, nonprofit, and/or individuals for the purpose of accurate and seamless tax preparation and internal business management. Now, I want to stay here for just a second because I want to speak to the freelancers, the independent contractors, the sole proprietors, the solopreneurs, and wondering how do you, how does this affect you in regards to keeping your books? How do you capture your income, especially when, you're getting multiple, you've received multiple 1099s or, things of that nature. And the bookkeeping, if you are filing taxes under either your social security number, or if your business is your name LLC and all of the services that you provide is under that name, and if you have an EIN, or again, if you're using your social security number, all of that income is applicable in the consideration of your PPP loan determination, and that needs to be recorded in your bookkeeping. Okay, so I just wanted to speak to that and make sure that I'm addressing everybody and not just small businesses. As an independent contractor, a freelancer, a solopreneur, a sole proprietor, you are a small business, okay, for the sake of the definition. So bookkeeping is the most important element of your business's accounting cycle. And what an accounting cycle is a collective process of identifying, analyzing, and recording the events of your company. Okay, it's a series of steps that begins when a transaction occurs and ends with its inclusion in the financial statement. For example, you purchase some inventory to sell, right? That's the beginning. It ends up on either your balance sheet or your income statement. Okay. And then in order to keep the best books, you should use some software. If you're really small, you can use Excel, but you have to be very diligent about keeping track of that and making sure that you update it so that you're not losing any integrity of data. So some of the most popular software for small businesses and independent contractors. By the way, I'm going to use independent contractors interchangeably with solopreneur, sole proprietor, freelancer, etc. So independent contractors, this is some of the most popular software to use to help you to keep record of your business transactions, your bookkeeping. So the first two, Wave and ZipBooks, those are free softwares. So anybody can just sign up for them and they're pretty decent. I mean, I wouldn't put them here if they weren't. They're pretty decent free softwares if you have a pretty simple business model. And then, of course, the big one, QuickBooks, they have both QuickBooks Online and QuickBooks Desktop. You also have Xero, FreshBooks, Zoho, and there's a million other ones, but these are like the most popular ones. And again, I wanted to include a free option because it does exist. So if Excel doesn't work for you, you do have a free option for accounting software. That's Wave Apps and ZipBooks. Okay. Now, Bookkeeping 101. Let's dig right into it and break it down. And I'm going to tell you how this affects, again, your financial statements, how it flows to your tax returns, and what does that mean to apply for the PPP? What does that mean to you? Why is it important? Why does it matter? Okay, so you have your chart of accounts, billing and accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll, inventory, fixed assets, bank reconciliation. Okay, now let's jump right into it. So chart of accounts. Your chart of accounts is the list of all accounts where your transactions will be categorized. Now, when you look at your chart of accounts, or when you think about a chart of accounts and what that means, think about your tax return, the Schedule C, and the categories that's listed there. And you'll have this, you should have the same categories in your chart of accounts that exist on your Schedule C. Okay, you may have more in your chart of accounts just for internal management purposes, but for the most part and the most important categories, you should have the same ones in your chart of accounts as well as your Schedule C. And here's an example of what that looks like. So here's your chart of accounts, sample chart of accounts, and then here's the Schedule C, right? And so these categories here should exist in your chart of accounts. If they don't, they should, to say the least. Okay. And then let's move on to billing and accounts receivable. So your billing and accounts receivable is two different functions, not to be confused. Billing is the recording of a sale via an invoice or a sales receipt. An invoice is a sales record to customers for future payment. So it's not a simultaneous exchange of products and or services and money, right? It's for future payment. And then a sales receipt is the opposite of an invoice. That is the simultaneous exchange of products and or services and money. Okay, and so it's recorded separately as opposed to, it doesn't matter. An invoice is different from a sales receipt, hence the definition of what that is. And then accounts receivable is the receipt and application of sales payment to match the sales record, your invoice, right? So You issue a customer an invoice in 30 days, they pay it. That is your accounts receivable. That's the function of accounts receivable and what it does. And accounts receivable, it flows to your income statement as your top line, your revenue. And sales receipts flow to your top line as well, okay? So that's where you capture your gross sales with sales receipts and invoices. And then accounts payable, the opposite of accounts receivable, is to record, review, and approve and pay all bills for products and or services from vendors. So when you purchase, let's say, paper from a vendor, they send you an invoice. You don't have to pay it for 30 days. That's your payables. That sits in your accounts payable, and you pay that when the time comes to pay it. And so your paid bills flows to your income statement as expenses, and your unpaid bills flows to your balance sheet as liabilities. Now, to not get too technical with this, this is essentially where you're going to see your expenses, your accounts payable. So when they talked about using it for mortgage payments, using your PPP funds for mortgage payments, interest, and utilities. This is where you're going to find that information, where you're going to find how much you spent on that. And then we're going to go deeper into actually recording, following, tracking how you spent the PPP funds, okay? And then timekeeping and payroll. That's what this is all about. This is PPP. So timekeeping records your employees' time and flows to payroll to calculate pay for a specific period. So this is just, timekeeping is a tool that helps you to determine how much you're going to be paying your employees, and set up properly, it'll flow smoothly over to payroll, calculate the amount that you have to pay your employees, and show up nicely on your payroll reports. Now, payroll, some requirements of payroll in general, okay, as a business owner, as 941s are a required document for the PPP. So that's part of the requirement for payroll. Those are some of the reports that you're going to have to file when you have W-2 employees. So very different from 1099 contractors, W-2 employees, this applies to those businesses only. Solopreneurs and independent contractors that do not have employees, what you will use as your quote unquote payroll is owner's distribution. Okay, and so that lives on your balance sheet as your owner's distribution. It's a part of the equity account in your balance sheet, and we'll look at a balance sheet in a minute. But essentially, what you take out of your business as paid for yourself is going to be an owner's distribution. So again, going back to the forgiveness of the PPP, 60%, in order for it to be forgiven, to be considered for forgiveness, at least 60% of it has to be used for payroll costs. As an independent contractor, you're probably thinking, I don't have employees, what's considered payroll costs for me? Your owner's distribution is considered your payroll cost. So let's just say, for example, you receive a PPP loan for $10,000. If you do owner's distribution of $6,000, that's 60% of the loan amount, okay? And that, again, is going to live in owner's distribution. Okay, so that's payroll. Now, fixed assets, let's talk about that. Fixed assets, this is your equipment, machinery, land, patents, and anything, etc., purchased for use in the business over an extended period of time, generally costing more than $2,000, right? So vehicles, commercial printer, a warehouse, again, mortgages and rents. If you own a warehouse, and you have to pay the mortgage on this warehouse, that is, part of the forgivable expenses for the PPP. Okay, and then so fixed assets are expensed over the life of the asset and not entirely in the year of purchase. Now, this is just basic information for bookkeeping, just so that you have a base knowledge This particular bullet point is not applicable to the PPP, but it's good for you to know as a business owner. Again, we want to make sure that you know how to track and record the transactions that's happening in your business, not just for PPP application, but for funding, credit, and internal management overall, right? We want you to be great. And so you need to make sure that you have these things in place and you're doing them on a regular basis so that your business can continue to grow and thrive. Okay, and then your fixed assets flows to your balance sheet as an asset. And then, so we have bank reconciliations. And bank reconciliations is the process of reconciling all of your transactions in your accounting system, Wave apps, FreshBooks, QuickBooks, etc. What it does is it ensures that all your transactions have been captured and there are no duplicates. And it's essential for the accurate reporting of financial statements and tax preparing, right? So if you don't do bank reconciliations, most of the time, this is where you're going to find balance affecting errors in your accounting system, in your bookkeeping, right? And it generally is going to either over or understate your income and or expenses. This is where incorrect information gets posted to your tax returns. You know, and of course, we want to make sure that when we're submitting the data and information to the lenders for the PPP, that we're submitting accurate information. Because if not, and you know, there's a possibility of being audited, you don't want to have submitted the incorrect information to receive a government loan. So you want to make sure that your books are correct. Bank reconciliations is one part of ensuring that your books are accurate, making sure you don't have duplicates and that you did not miss any transactions, okay? Now, the income statement, the all elusive income statement. The income statement is the financial statement that shows your income, that's your sales / revenue, your cost of goods sold, we call that COGS, expenses, and your net profit. This is where you're going to find most of the information that you need for the PPP. Okay, and this is what flows to your tax return. Okay, that's the income statement. So this is like the most known, if you will, financial statement of, you know, small businesses. It shows what you made, what you spent, and what you have left over. Essentially, that's what it is, right? Your gross revenue, your expenses, and then your net profit. And then we also have the second most popular financial statement with small businesses and businesses across the board is your balance sheet, right? Your balance sheet shows what you own and what you owe. Okay, this is where you'll find the current financial position of your business. Okay, when seeking funding from lending institutions, PPP aside, this is the statement that banks, lending institutions want to see because it shows the strength of your company and your retained earnings. Your retained earnings is the history of your business's net profit. Okay, so those two financial statements are the most important financial statements in your business. And these are the two statements that you're going to need for the PPP application. Okay, and everything that we went over is going to populate the income statement and the balance sheet. Okay, now keeping your business records can seem like a daunting task when you don't have a plan. And it seems kind of like, you know, hindsight is 20/20, if you will. It seems like we're starting at the end because now you need to apply for lending, but you didn't start out with a plan in the beginning. It's okay.
Great information, Teresa. We're getting closer to our time. We're going to wrap it up because this is really good.
Okay. So creating a Am I still on?
Yes, you are. You are.
Okay. So creating a plan now is better than never creating a plan. And these are some of the things that you can do to create a plan to help you to record the transactions in your business so that the future it's a lot easier to gather the documents and information that you need for anything that you need to do in your business. And what does this have to do with the PPP finally? So bookkeeping is the gateway to all of the required documents for the PPP. Bookkeeping is going to help you track the use of the PPP funds. So again, if you want that forgiveness, right, we all do, you need to be able to track how you use the funds that you receive from the PPP. Bookkeeping is going to assist you in doing that. Okay, bookkeeping is also essential to all businesses. And again, like the plan, now is a great time to start. Even if you didn't do it before, start now. Okay, and then as a solopreneur, independent contractor, you also need to keep books. Don't think that this does not apply to you. Independent contractors need to keep books as well, because if you receive a check, if you do a job and you receive a check for $10,000, and when you receive your 1099 that next year, it's reporting that they paid you $10,000. But the reality is that it cost you money to make that $10,000, and you need to have documented that so that you can reduce your taxable income for tax purposes. And you need to keep track of your books and your spending. Okay, that's important to independent contractors as well, not just small businesses. And then again, disregarded entities, that's your single member LLC, sole proprietor, independent contractors. You need to know, again, what I just said, how much you paid yourself, how much it cost you to earn that money. And essentially, that is all. I'll open it up for questions if you have any questions. And if you need to reach me, here's my contact. Thank you.
Teresa, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I was sitting back like, wow, you're really sharing the information to where a business owner actually do this themselves. Yeah. So that is very, very few would actually do that, but it shows the importance and care and your breadth of knowledge in this environment and in bookkeeping. And I really liked how you talked about making sure that sole proprietors is a business. And yes, in order to make sure that you maximize these funds, you have to document your expenses, owner distribution, and all those things. And if you want to really get a hold of this, you got to have a plan. So you hit it right on the head. This is going to be a valuable webinar for those that are watching it. And the great thing about it is you hear all this stuff about bookkeeping, you see the details, you can do it yourself. But as most of us as business owners, we don't want to, so we call you.
Absolutely, yes.
So it's a great marketing, it's a great strategy to really know what it is and what it entails. Because once they get into the details, they'll see it can be quite a bit. Unless you have a plan and you structure your work schedule to allocate times to that. So with that, I would like to bring on City National Bank to join us as we answer a few of the questions that we have. I know there was one that was already answered. So first, Glasleen asked about, can you use two incomes to file? Meaning if I have 2 or to 3 1099s or forms for W-2s, can I file for forgiveness?
Did you want me to answer that?
Whoever. I think City National Bank, you want to start, and then Teresa, you can wrap up with that.
Sure, and certainly welcome Teresa as the expert, because I think we help guide, but only to a point. We highly recommend that our clients, our borrowers, seek advice from their financial advisor, from their CPAs. So that's not who we are. We rely on people like Teresa specifically, and I agree, she's done a fantastic job. So yeah, so the 1099, if you are the 1099 applying on behalf of yourself, because that we're always we're in situations where if an employer cannot include their 1099 employees on their loan, but the 1099 individual can apply on behalf of themselves. So yes, they can. I believe that's correct that you can put that on a combined basis because it's for the same individual.
All right. Teresa, you have anything else on that?
Yeah, so I think that the most important thing to note here in this question and answer is that if you're operating under, if you're a 1099, right, you're essentially a disregarded entity, and it doesn't matter, you can file 5 Schedule Cs, you still have to file your 1040 under your Social Security number.
Right.
So all of that income is going to be combined and considered. You just have to make sure that you report it accurately and you file all of that income in order for it to be considered, right? So yeah, as an independent contractor, you receive a 1099. You have to pay your taxes under your Social Security number. And then if you're operating under your Social Security number, then, you know, that's even easier. Or if you're operating under one EIN, again, it all comes together under your tax filing to determine the amount of your income.
Awesome. We have a question, Stephen. It says PP2 requires funds from PP1 to be and if PPP, I'm going to just Paycheck Protection Program. The second round requires funds from the first round of PPP to be fully and properly used. Does that not appear to require PP1 to be eligible for full forgiveness? Is that correct?
No.
It's a great question. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, so yeah, you've got to make sure that you've used all of the proceeds from PPP1 to apply for the second draw, PPP2. So whether or not it's forgiven, it's a separate conversation. You've got to make sure that you've used all the proceeds from the first round to apply for the second round. If you haven't used it for the first round, it bears to mind, do you really need it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jimmy, the automatic forgiveness on round 1 PPP was 50,000. No, Jimmy, 50,000.
Yeah. Well, right now with Form 3508S, 150,000 is the cutoff. You don't have to provide evidence. It's going to be based on your attestation, but you've got to keep the supporting documents for the forgiveness piece, but that does not have to be provided at forgiveness. So that's a new form that I didn't touch upon on the slides because it's something that we're rolling out now. It's new. So thank you for bringing that up, Bernie.
Yeah, really good.
And am I hearing this correctly that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's going to be automatic if you, let's say you apply for $50,000 in PPP and you apply for $50,000 in PPP funding. Are you saying that all that could be forgiven just with a attestation?
Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, right, in the initial forgiveness, you had certain thresholds. You always had to provide evidence that you used the funds for the appropriate, for the eligible cost. With the Form 3508S, and that's more something Teresa could maybe touch on. It's going to be based on attestation. You still have to use the funds for the appropriate, in the appropriate way, but 150,000 is the threshold. And so it's something that we're working on, but we haven't rolled that out yet. But this is, one of the reasons I always tell everyone, make sure you're consulting with your accountant is the program changes. It changes constantly. There are updates to the final rules. And so it's dynamic and you have to be working with the most updated information. And that's why Teresa, she walked you from A to Z on how to keep your books. It's the relationship that you have with your accountant, your bookkeeper, your CPA, that's going to make sure that you maximize and execute on this correctly. All right. So there's no black and white clear-cut answer for every question. It's a case by case. We've realized that there's so many different nuances And so a cookie cutter answer doesn't, and you know, that doesn't do us justice in most cases.
I'm go ahead. I'm gonna try to make it cookie cutter, Jimmy. Keep records. That's it, right? Always prepare for the worst. If you're prepared for the worst, what can take you, what can take you by surprise? What can you not be prepared for? So, even though up to $150,000 is forgiven, you still need to track everything that happens in your business, including anything to do with PPP.
Very, very well said. That is amazing, and I can see why now it's like forgive now. Right now. Before there's any other changes, let's do it right now, because now is literally the best time to apply for forgiveness. So that is amazing. Another question that I speak to quite a few business owners, and another question that I've heard quite a bit is their business haven't been doing too well, which means that their expenses has come down, their revenues has come down, and they may only be taking $500, $1,000 just to sustain themselves, dramatically cut their payroll. If they were to apply, should they apply for that little bit amount? If it's only $500 a month for the past 6 months, is it worth it to apply and go after PPP funds?
I would say it's always worth it to apply. There's not really a minimum threshold. I mean, that is the number that still qualifies them for that. So there is, the loan program itself doesn't have a cost to it, for the prospective borrower. So, I guess just as, as Teresa said, if they've kept good records of that, they should, if they've been following that all along, then to make it pretty easy for them to collect their paperwork to make the application process. So, and I know Bernie's going to touch real quick too on how to apply through City National Bank and how we can get that done for you. But yes, absolutely. I think it's always worth it.
Yeah, I would say that. So based off of your previous year's tax return, right? So before COVID hit, those numbers, right? That's essentially your 2019 tax return. That's what you're submitting it off of, with a comparison to your numbers of 2020. So if your business did not do well in 2020, that's okay. That was expected. That's the reason for the PPP. So the comparison would be from 2019 to 2020. A 25% reduction, and I think I apply. That's my answer. Apply.
Awesome. This has been a very insightful webinar. I want to thank Barbara, Teresa, Bernardo, Jimmy, and the whole team at City National Bank for really making this happen. This is something that lives on our Facebook, on our website, so that people can always go to this and use it as a resource. So as we close out, do you have any closing remarks as we close out?
Matthew, this is Bernie Adrover again. If any one of your membership or any other small business they want to apply with City National Bank, I think we put in one of the slides my telephone number, 305-349-5454, and leave me a voicemail. I mean, I'll promise you I will answer you within 48 hours. I mean, we've been doing some of these prior. I'm not going to answer you right away because I have all the stuff that we're taking care of, but we'll promise you an answer. So you can go ahead and apply. We'll send you the link, and we can get you going these 2 weeks. So this is a crucial time for truly small businesses. And we are there. City National Bank is there to help them.
Awesome. Teresa, I see it was a question just put in the chat. You want to take that when applying for PPP1, receiving and having funding left over, do you return the monies as you close out?
I'm confused.
Yeah.
When applying for PPP1, so is that the previous, or is that just the first draw? Are you referring to the first draw? The second round, but the first draw, or the first round, first draw?
Like she's saying, yes, the first round.
Well, as Jimmy said, you have to use all of the funds from the PPP. If you receive PPP funding in the first round, you have to use all of that before you can apply for PPP 2. As far as returning the monies, I'm not really certain about that. And here's what I would say from an accounting perspective. You always want to have a rainy day fund. And if you're given these funds to assist your business, it would be, excuse my bluntness, it would be foolish to return it and you don't know what the future holds. And you may need that money in the, yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, listen, I wanted to chime in on that. If you don't use it for the eligible purposes, right, you're going to have to pay it back, right? So it will not be forgiven. So it makes sense to keep all that in perspective, that you're going to have to pay it back if you don't, if it's not forgiven. So that's the wild card that, once again, get with your tax advisor. This is a special situation that's a little different. In most cases, the expectation is these funds are used and they're spent, and there's a need for more funds because the situation hasn't improved much. So an accountant question, and that's my take.
Yeah, that's what essentially what I was going to get to, is that if you've allocated and used the funds as the forgiveness requires, if you have leftover funds, granted it doesn't impose on the forgiveness requirements, hold on to it. It would be foolish to give it back because you've met the requirements for forgiveness. And so you don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of months or the next year. So you can hold on to it, knowing that the loan is forgiven, or that if you have to pay it back, if you know that that's how you use the funds for PPP, that you're going to have to pay it back. Now, as far as the legality of returning the funds or the ability to return the funds, that's something that the bank would have to answer. I don't know about that, if you're actually able to do that.
Yeah, I would go back to if you've, at the point in time, 10 months after use of proceeds, 10 months after you've received your funding, you have to have gone through a forgiveness process, or it starts to require payment. So remember, also on one of those first slides, there is no prepayment penalty. So if it does convert to a loan and you have the funds available, then yes, you would submit it as a prepayment or repayment of that loan. So yeah, that absolutely, you could return those funds. But I agree. Like, I think don't return funds prematurely, given the uncertainty that still exists out there. But you can prepay, because again, there's no prepayment penalty, and then there is a window at what point in time the loan goes into it becomes actually a loan, right? Where there's payments due. So at that point, you could actually just go ahead and prepay it or pay it off if you have the funds available at that time.
Tasha, did that answer your question? That was great.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we're going to close out. Teresa, you want to close out with your remarks?
Keep good records. So my firm, we saw the need for DIY bookkeeping for small business owners, independent contractors. And so we created a membership product that gives you all the tools and resources to do your books yourself. Before either you're financially able to afford either an in-house accountant or outsourced accountant, or if it's just something that you want to do yourself because maybe you have the time and maybe you want to use it as a learning opportunity, we created that membership for you. And I will put the link to it in the chat, and check it out.
Awesome. Thank you very much to our panelists, City National Bank, and Teresa from Millennial Bookkeeping and Accounting, for providing this valuable resource. I challenge everyone that have a business or have friends that have business. Make sure you share this on Facebook, share the link. The link will be up on our website. You go to www.m-dcc.org. In our webinar recordings, you will see this. So this is an amazing conversation, a lot of great information. We strongly encourage you to take full advantage of these resources. And here at Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce, we have technical assistance program. I am that technical assistance coordinator, where we help with much of the back end that you need to get your business to expand. We are a membership organization. Our focus is on helping our businesses to expand, to grow, to scale, to access government contracts. That is mostly what we do and what we are part of. So I want you to make sure you take advantage of what we have at the Miami-Dade Chamber of Commerce. Visit our website, schedule your technical assistance, and make sure you check out our events page to learn more. I want to thank everyone and all my panelists for being here today, and we'll have a great day, everyone. Take care.